Buonasera a tutti. Good evening and welcome to the Italian Radio Hour. Io sono Viviana and I would like to welcome back our regular listeners and also welcome any new listeners. Also, be sure to like us on Instagram and Facebook at Italian Radio Hour and subscribe to our YouTube channel to catch up on any past video interviews. Vorrei dare il benvenuto ai nostri ascoltatori da tutto il mondo, grazie per essere con noi anche oggi mentre continuiamo il nostro viaggio per l'Italia e la cultura italiana. So the week of Italian cuisine in the world has recently concluded, and we're dedicating our current episodes to food. And in order to take us on a great conversation about the Italian cuisine, la cucina italiana, today we will be speaking to Roberta Marini del Plano, who is an active member of the Accademia Italiana della Cucina, serving as the delegate for the New York and New York Soho chapters. The Accademia Italiana della Cucina is an organization dedicated to preserving and promoting Italian culinary culture. Marina has been associated with the Accademia since 2008, and she was appointed the delegate head of the New York delegation in March 2021. So don't go anywhere. We'll have a great conversation with Roberta, ma prima pubblicità. Parli italiano? Do you want to learn, improve, or master your Italian? Istituto Mondo Italiano can help. Located in the heart of Regent Square, Mondo Italiano offers small group classes and one-on-one private tutoring in person or online to help you learn Italian in no time. Visit us online at istitutomondoitaliano.org. Benvenuta, Roberta. It's such a great pleasure to have you with us. How are you today?
Thank you. Thank you, Viviana. Nice to be here. I'm very good. Thank you.
Roberta, so you have been...
Just interject, sorry, I want to make it clear that I am the head of the New York chapter, not the Soho chapter.
Okay, thank you for the correction. And we will learn all about the mission of the Accademia Italiana della Cucina and some of the events that and presentations that you have been participating in recently, because again, it was the week of the Italian cuisine in the world. But just to give a little bit of background information to our audience, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how eventually you got involved with the Accademia Italiana della Cucina?
Sure. I'm a product of two cultures, obviously, being my parents are Italian. We've traveled around the world. I grew up in England and in America, and my ties are very strong to Italy. My parents moved back to Italy after a career all over the world. My father was involved with Accademia Italiana della Cucina. So I am second generation joining Accademia. He went all the way to being on the board. And I had a love and a passion for food ever since I was a child. My mother was an incredible cook. She made everything you can possibly imagine and hosted dinner parties with tons of dishes. So I grew up knowing what really good food and authentic food from different regions, because my mother cooked different regions. And I remember the difficulty we had when I first came to the States, whenever my mother was looking for ingredients. We would have to go to the Bronx and Little Italy and Queens just to make one dinner happen, because it was very difficult to find the same ingredients that we had in the 70s, late 70s. So we really came a long way. So my interest in Accademia was naturally born from going to the dinners with my father, seeing what it was about, following the different delegates and the different events they were doing, and also for what they stood for, because I think that I encountered some of the problems that Accademia is promoting, both in tradition and culture, when I first came here, and I wanted to be the bridge between this country and Italy.
And so the Accademia Italiana della Cucina of New York is indeed the first delegation that created overseas in 1959. So can we elaborate a little more about the Accademia's mission?
The mission of Accademia it was started in 1953 in Milano by Orio Vergani. He and a number of intellectuals, journalists, industrialists, entrepreneurs, and artists came together A little bit as visionaries also, because some of them were visionaries and they could see what was happening in the world with the beginning of industrialization and globalization. And after the war, many people also exited from the south of Italy because of the conditions to come to America. So immigration started, and naturally with immigration, there's the carrying over of traditions. And so their mission was to start protecting our traditions and our culture, but specifically regional cuisine, because as you know, in Italy, we have many traditions and every single region has their way of preparing something, as do the towns, as every little section of Italy has its own story. And so we set out, and obviously in 1959, the first chapter outside of Italy. Italy already had opened different chapters, and we have many all over Italy. I mean, right now we have more than 7,500 members all over the world, but New York was the first one to open in 1959.
So obviously, when we are putting value on typical and regional cuisines and products, and we take the time and effort to let people know about them and to let them know how they are prepared, and also doing tasting. And this is what Italy probably has been able to do with great success. That is also to defend a little bit of our own cultural identity. So you touched a little bit upon it in your introduction. So the vision of Italian cuisine and its product now, how much has it differed from when you first arrived to New York?
Well, first and foremost, when I arrived to New York, it was very difficult to find the ingredients. I mean, literally, there was we didn't have all the pasta that we have now. We didn't have the jars. We didn't have Italy. We didn't have all the imports. In fact, our imports have increased tremendously. You can find anything you want in specialty stores now. You can find them in supermarkets. Although I have to say that when you think about in the warfare that occurred in Chicago in the 1800s, and it was the Expo, because it was celebrating 100 years of Columbus. The gold medal of innovation was given to Di Cecco, because he had invented drying pasta. So if you think about that, that's incredible. You know, back in when we came here, I mean, with Di Cecco in the 1800s, we couldn't find those things. I mean, we were looking at certain traditions. Christmas, you know, my mother was looking to make a soup typical of Abruzzo, il brodo con cardone, and cardone was difficult to find, so we had to go to the Bronx. Panettoni, you know, torroni, things that represent for us our Christmas tradition, you know, amaretti, things that can seem silly. Today you can go and you can find them. You find panettone everywhere. You even find them at Trader Joe's, American supermarkets, something that didn't, so like La Colomba and other things that were not readily available, but that kept our spirit, and it was part of what we grew up with. We certainly wanted to maintain it. And these are the things that you carry with you. Finding fresh pasta, we would go to Raffetto, because obviously my mother, you know, didn't have the time to sit there and make pasta. My grandmother used to make pasta alla chitarra, and I used to help her make the little bowls, but it was different. And then as things developed, as we started to get restaurants that wanted to bring more of the authentic Italian cuisine, that started in the 80s, late 80s. Then slowly the evolution started to occur. And now we see many Italian products in the United States. We also see many fake Italian sounding products in the United States. And that is a very, that's an issue that we find. And what it means is, you know, anything now at supermarkets, which is good, because it means that people like our products. People know what.
We had a whole episode about that. Yes, go ahead.
You know, it's a good thing, because they're when people copy, it means that
it's flattery, right?
Exactly. Exactly. The problem is that obviously here, what has happened is that the laws are less strict than our laws in Italy.
Mhm.
Therefore, we have GMO, even GMO was introduced into the products, in wheat and so forth. We have a lot of pesticides, we have a lot of colorings, we have a lot of additives. We are more stringent on those rules, and we have proper labeling for our products, which is DOP, IGP, to tell you that these products come from a controlled area. They have a traditional process attached to them, and that they're 100% Italian, which is extremely important, because anything you see at the supermarket now has a little flag, and people assume that it's Italian, or they see that it was, Italian, has an Italian name. Oh, it's Italian. No, it's not. No, it's not. So you have to really turn the bottle. You have to see, is it packed, or is the olives Italian? Is it 100% Italian? You could also have a name of a product that's made in America. So you have to differentiate. And what I always say is, look at the ingredients, educate the consumer, educate them even when they're very young about the different ingredients, so that they can make educated decisions and they know what they're buying. And that's what we're working on every single day.
Absolutely. So we will touch upon this topic again later in the conversation. But obviously, being in New York with everything that happened during the pandemic, that didn't stop you. So I know that you had launched some initiatives to keep the conviviality and the spreading of the Italian cuisine in New York in a virtual fashion. So tell us a little bit about how you managed to still keep the conversation relevant when restaurants were closing, or people were at home and so forth.
Okay. Going back to your original comment, I had just become Delegate 1 year earlier than what you mentioned. So I had just become Delegato, and actually we did our dinner where I transferred the campana. It was great, but it was the last dinner just as a few days later, so COVID hit us. And I felt, oh my gosh, here I am. I've got a big responsibility. It's important to keep the spirit going, and it's important to connect with people. And so I was trying to think, how do we do this? How do we do this? And finally I said, you know what? I started talking to some chefs, and I said, why don't we bring the meal to them? And I started working with Michelin star chef and on another one and so forth. And I started to see the feasibility of being able to use FedEx, which at the time was very busy, as you know, with the sending of the vaccine. So I was really going into many different trials and tribulations. But what we did was we packaged a meal for two. It was much more convenient than going to a restaurant, because it was a lot cheaper, and it was for two. We did pasta, the first course, second course, and dessert. I did not include wine, because if we didn't know what, that was enough to organize at this point, with a menu and instruction how to heat or prepare your meal. The box arrived at everybody's house with the ingredients also, and then I use the modern, I use Zoom. I created a full dinner on Zoom, and we were all gathered together. And the first one was for Christmas, and it was very jovial. First one, we had a few technical issues that, to connect, and then it all went smooth. It was really nice. It was new. But it was wonderful to see everybody connected and to see the medium. And then we did one which was called La Cina in Maschera.
I was going to ask you about,
that was
masks.
amazing, because everybody thought when I presented the idea, Cina in Maschera, oh, we're wearing these masks, right? And instead, no, because it was Carnevale. So I heard Venezia closed, Viareggio closed the Carnival. And I said, you know what? We've got to keep this spirit alive. So let's do una cena di Carnevale. And what I did was I created a box of a typical Carnevale meal. Included in the box, apart from the menu, the instructions, our name, quarantine cuisine, the heating instructions. It came really nicely prepared. Again, we had the antipasto first and second, and the dessert were chiacchiere. Chiacchiere are very, very fragile. So if you could get those to arrive in one piece, you've done an incredible job. And again, we had snow and different things against us, but we managed to get there. In the box, I also included 3 Venetian masks, 3 or 4, depending, so that the guests could actually put on their masks when they came on. And we focused on the traditions of Viareggio, because during the dinner, we started with the history of la canzoncina, la canzonetta, which is the song that started with the Viareggio Carnevale. We talked about the Carnevale. We then had a direct live come si dice?
Connection, maybe?
Connection virtual with the Accademia of Viareggio. And trust me, 2 o'clock in the morning is not the correct time. They were there for us. So they shared information. They showed us the desserts that are typical of Viareggio, and we went with the music. This was all very informative. And then obviously it's important to understand also the way things were prepared, because we used the modern techniques in order to send this food out, or come si dice? Shrink pack. Okay.
To just shrink wrap,
Yes, it was. Sorry, I'm getting the word dall'italiano for spagnolo. Anyway, so we presented everything where it was all individually packed, free, no germs could get to. That was very important for everybody to understand, that we used the most serious and protective measures in order to prepare the food and then send it to them. And so each package for each person was individually wrapped. So we went into the new cooking techniques. We went into how to make the food, its origins and everything else. It was a wonderful, wonderful segment, because remember, there was a dinner for 2. So in every Zoom had 2 people, if not 3. So it was lovely. And what was really comforting to me was to see that we also reached people that were not comfortable in the beginning with Zoom, because it is different. I mean, it's a new medium that not everybody understands or wants to participate in it from, their home. It's very private. And it was nice to see that slowly we had actually broken that, and how I got comments how this was so interesting because it was more interactive. Everybody participated, everybody could share. And the questions, there were many questions. And it was fun. It brought la conviviale, il stare insieme, which is part of what the Mediterranean diet is, coming together, share a meal. And it gave you a really positive feeling during such a dark moment, and the take on La Cena in Maschera being the opposite. It was a lovely event.
And obviously you were able to capture the cuisine, the culture, because again, that's a major component of these traditions that mean so much to us. And sometimes they translate into a dish, but sometimes even the dressing up in costumes, that is the coriandoli, I think they call it confettis here. But it's really, it still makes me feel like a little child. And also maybe an added bonus to this modality is that usually when you go to a party or a dinner, you probably tend to converse only to the ones to your right, to your left, and maybe across, even because we kind of talk over each other. Whereas here, probably everyone could interact with everyone else in a very fun and comfortable way, as you have indicated. Was there any thought after, now that we have kind of gone back and even seek the being together, the idea of doing some other virtual events, or is this kind of a past experience?
No, actually, I have been wanting to do, because in one of my dinners, then I continued the gemellaggio with Italy, and I've been talking to a lot of the delegates in Italy with the regards to this, because I think it's important to be able to capture. I did it with Sicily, with a restaurateur in Sicily for one of my dinners, where I did a Sicilian dinner here, and I do want to continue to use the medium, because I think that it's yet another way to reach people, as is social media, as is Instagram, like you were mentioning before, TikTok and so forth. It's different ways to get to other people, especially when they're not local, when they're not close by. So I haven't planned to do some of those things. And there's an appreciation for that, because everything brings with it something different. When I did my pasta making and pizza making class, that was a different approach. And people really enjoyed it. Seeing how and personally making mozzarella and tasting it when it's hot and seeing how it comes and making the dough and the pizza, understanding the difference about, why our flour doesn't make you feel full, or what the process is, the drying and so forth, and the fun of rolling and feeling and touching and tasting. There were people who really enjoyed that. And if you want to also get more younger people involved and teach younger people, there's no better way than to one, grab them virtually, and then two, try to give them the actual touch and feel experience and taste experience.
Okay, we'll continue with our conversation, but first a couple of words from our sponsors. Applying for Italian citizenship, need documents translation? Istituto Mondo Italiano provides certified translations and assistance services. Be sure to visit us at istitutomondoitaliano.org and schedule your free consultation. Un caffè, per favore. My first cup of coffee sets the tone for my entire day, and I get my coffee at La Prima Espresso. La Prima has been brewing Pittsburgh's best coffee for over 35 years. Try any of their in-house roasted varieties of beans from all over the world at home, or come and enjoy an espresso or a cappuccino at any of their locations, where their friendly baristas and familiar faces will make you feel at home. Visit laprima.com to get La Prima Espresso coffee at your door. Okay, so let's continue to talk a little bit about, during this period that we stayed at home, again, there was a lot of going back to traditions, the baking, the making pasta and so forth. And also, people started to become more aware towards food, more educated on reading labels and so forth. So what are some of the new trends that you see happening, or where is the academia focusing their message in these days, where we can count on even more on technology?
Well, what transpired, during the COVID, and basically started also what is today the home deliveries, people ordering and making life, more easy and so forth. What we're doing as Accademia is making people, especially young children, understand the importance of local ingredients, of seasonality, which is extremely important, because some of that is missing, especially with the supermarkets today, where you have, in America, you can find anything at any time. And so it's important for us to reach our audience, and we do a lot with our children, especially. We have many materials that Accademia does on a yearly basis, books and so forth. But we did a wonderful book, which is La Storia della Cucina Italiana a fumetti, and you have a copy.
Oh, actually, we use it during our summer camps, and it allows us to, again, start this conversation about food also in the graphic. They appreciate it and give us some historical background on the recipes. So that is a book that I'm very familiar with. it. I'm happy you brought it.
Actually, not just for children, because I've given it to
No, there is a lot of
adults.
information. I
Yeah,
learned a lot.
course on our cuisine from the Etruscans to today, and then you've got some recipes at the very back, which are simple, supposedly simple recipes for people to follow. The wonderful thing about that is that Accademia did something more modern and in many languages, because we did it in 8 languages. We also have it online. So it's a fun way to reach our audience. Another way that we're also reaching our audience more globally is through the introduction of Accademia Italiana della Cucina app. It's got our logo. And if you go and download the Accademia della Cucina app with our round logo, what you'll get is you'll get the publications. You can see the publications. You can see what we're about. You can get recipes from it. We have the oldest library, Franco Merengue, which is the oldest library and huge library with documents that date back to the 1200s and containing the history of recipes, the history of the different regions and their culture. And it's just an amazing resource. And when we do our books, in fact, all of our books that we create go always by region. So you find out the specific topic, la cucina del riuso, come si dice, il bosco, il sottobosco. Every year we have a theme, la cucina del contadino. And we go and explain by region what the customs was, what the best dishes are, to also show how they're prepared differently and what is customary in the north versus the south, in one region versus. So it's very interesting. I think that accessing the app is a wonderful tool. We also have another app, which is Guida ai Ristoranti, that tells you what we think about restaurants and our rating system, and you can go by location. So my first suggestion is to download the app and see what we're up to and see if you're interested in it, because it's always a great place to start, or to go to our website,
which I'm going to bring up here because it leads me
and
to.
this is our app, by the way. I just
Wonderful.
want to Accademia Italiana della Cucina.
So as I indicated before, we just concluded the 9th week of Italian cuisine in the world. And there was indeed a lot of focus on the Mediterranean diet and the cuisine from the roots. This is also a theme, root tourism, that has been the kind of the conversation, the main conversation topic in this year. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the presentations that you attended? What were some of the common themes, comparisons, or piece of advice that our listeners should be familiar with? But
we did an event where we reached a number of high school students because we started a study along with UNESCO for La Dieta Planetaria to basically understand what the eating habits, Mediterranean eating habits are. We have a Mediterranean diet, but not every place that you go to has the same ingredients, obviously. So it's easier said than done. What we need to do is basically understand the typical patterns of people in the area, let's say New York, take a study of them, and then be able to look at the food that's available and create and bring it into how the Mediterranean diet can be adapted to the specific location you're in. So the whole part of that lecture series was actually on explaining the importance of the Mediterranean diet, the ingredients, what it does to your health, and getting these young adults, young high school kids involved in this, finding out or teaching them also about the importance of seasonality. I gave them a list of seasonal ingredients so that when they go out, they can go to the farmer's market, or they can go to the supermarket and actually taste what's in season and what isn't and compare, because it's very important. We talked about the different principles that exist in the Mediterranean diet. We acknowledge that a lot more men now are cooking than in the olden days. And basically, we also talked about creating la settimana della cucina per I giovani, starting something like that for the following year. And the other thing I suggested is, why not create a day in schools, which is La Dieta Mediterranea Day, so that young people can have a day to celebrate what it is to have a Mediterranean diet that's healthy eating, based on grains, based on vegetables, fruits, seasonal, which are also cheaper and more nutritious, when you eat seasonal vegetables. The Mediterranean diet doesn't uses fish, but meat is more of a something that you use sparingly, upon a couple one time a week or whatever. So it was an educational process that we're going to be continuing. Instead, then there was a story about a book presented, which was regarding grandfather's recipes, what one found when one first arrived to this country, and how a tradition gets brought on and continues across the generations, when the grandchild of this man remembered all the recipes and wanted to find them again, and the stories attached to each recipe that he lived, and why these recipes were so important, and made a book about them. And it's a lovely book that's fun and sweet, with beautiful memories. Then we continued the week with a number of other events, and we did one at the ICE, where we had a nutritionist talking about how do we get young people to follow the Mediterranean diet today, and their opinions, and also looking at cost-effective ways, because it's important for young people to understand that, yes, you don't have to spend a fortune. You also do not have to buy huge quantities, because that's part of the Mediterranean diet, buying smaller, fresher, and also looking at what's in your refrigerator. How do we make something from what we have? We also had Emily Riolo, who's written.
Yes, I know her very well. Yes, indeed. She's a great spokesperson and writer about many different publications about the Mediterranean diet. Yes.
So we talked about her. We had a gentleman who was an ex-Serie A player, who was just talking about the Mediterranean diet and in sports, and how you use your calories, your pasta, and so forth, before, after. And so that was a lovely intake, and what he does with his students. And then we had the head of the Consorzio della Mozzarella, and talking about specifically la mozzarella and the Mediterranean diet, the fact of, again, the originality, the DOP, and so the importance of the ingredients that go into it, the freshness of it, and all the rest of it. And after that, after our focus also on tariffs, naturally, and on the continuing of promotion to help people understand the importance of where the ingredients come from, and the freshness of ingredients. We package things also when they're in season. We again, even though there is a fear now with the tariffs, people who understand quality over quantity, over lesser products, will spend the extra money to buy a good Italian product, knowing that it's healthy for you.
Yes, and we just had a conversation. It was a 2-hour long interview with the director of the National Institute of Bread Testers. And so it was a very informative, but also so the responsibility lies both on the bread makers and the producers of bread, and how to recognize indeed healthy bread, but also on the consumer, because if indeed smaller bakeries are putting out and investing in a higher quality ingredients, obviously it's not going to be the 99 cents loaf of bread that you will be getting somewhere else.
Can you find a loaf of bread at 99? Because in New York, bread is very expensive. You know?
So, but also we consumers have to understand that again, there is we have to invest in order to be able to support quality, even because the long-lasting effects on our body reflects what we put in there. So it's an investment on ourselves and our health, and it might not be immediate, but it is indeed. When we look at people that are 100 years old, there is not a magic pill. It's a lifestyle that they have maintained for decades and decades and decades. So the sooner we become aware of it and take action, the better it's going to be. Also, our old age is going to be more enjoyable as well. And I have to comment on, I'm definitely in line with your initiatives and philosophy. We at Istituto Mondo Italiano hold summer camps on a regular basis. We've been doing for like almost 15 years. And it is amazing. And we have children that might be as young as 5 years old, all the way to 12 and 13. And we do have cooking experiences every single day. And it is amazing first to see their interest in making something that maybe they were accustomed just to pick up a box at the supermarket. Well, obviously, their parents, and being able to see how you transform water and flour and an egg into something fabulous, delicious that they made, and they have so much pride into that. To the feedback of parents that's, obviously we have some sort of intake form. We want to know if there are allergies or things that their children don't enjoy. They come to us and say, what are you doing? You're doing magic. My child has come home. Now he wants to, and he's just kind of giving them the tools, the ropes, and their curiosity will lead them to explore more and connect with the food. So we have also the ability to, prior to the summer camps and during the camps, to grow some ingredients, and they have the responsibility of tending to the vegetable garden. They have their names on every of the plants that they have planted, and it's just absolutely fulfilling to see them connecting to the point that they want to take those plants then on their vacations. And the parents say, well, we were planning to go to Florida, and little Mark wants to take his tomato plant on the airplane.
These are wonderful, wonderful things. And starting so young, it just makes all the difference in the world. I think that's great what you're doing, Viviana. And I only wish that we could reach more people to do something like that and to continue. Because once you learn it as a child, we don't have the same as what we did before, the grandparents getting involved. It's a little different because now both parents have to work. So what you start in school also you want to bring home. And it's nice. I've seen that even when we did the pizza making class, and at school, and then they watched the dough growing over the next 2 days. And over Thanksgiving, they're saying, can we make pizza all together? Can I tell you the ingredient? And it was nice because the whole family joined in. So even sometimes the children can make the parents learn, which is a wonderful thing. I think it's great. I really say you're doing a wonderful job, and it's wonderful to see that. I'd love to come when you do the next one. It would be fun. We'll get some people,
Absolutely, that would be
come up
great.
to New York. I think it would be fun. Yeah.
So we are indeed approaching a very American holiday, which is Thanksgiving. So obviously, when you have a household where maybe the spouses are from different countries, how do you reconcile tradition with innovation or cultural differences? And do you have a secret recipe that won't be that secret anymore? I heard that you make a wonderful, wonderful turkey. So
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
us everything.
Yeah, it actually it became I adopted that tradition because it's important to also learn and respect where you are, their traditions. So I had a father-in-law. I'd always have everyone here from Italy coming to my house because it's my birthday. So I brought everyone together for Thanksgiving. And my father-in-law hated turkey. He just could not eat turkey. My parents had lived in England, so turkey, we ate turkey, not the size of the American turkeys, but we did all nonetheless for Christmas. And I had to make, I wasn't done until I got him to eat my turkey. So every year I tried to do something different because he found it was boring and he liked the pasta to begin with and so forth. So I ended up I realized the important part of the turkey is not only the turkey, but it's the stuffing. And so I would use focaccia instead of cornbread or whatever. So I made sure I incorporated. I used chestnuts, I used sausages, I used pancetta. I used cranberries, which are American. I used raisins, I used nuts. So I started incorporating many ingredients, parsley, kind of the basic also start, which is, we use whenever we cook something, we use a base of carrot, celery, and onion. In this case, I removed the carrots, but I want everybody to participate in the making of the stuffing. And so I pre-make it, and then we stuff the bird. I make a little extra. And that was when I finally won my father-in-law. That's when I knew this was it. So it incorporates a lot of ingredients, many of the ones that I told you. It takes a long time because you have to finally chop everything and you have to cook everything separately and then bring it together. You also have to make the broth because I also incorporate fresh broth and I make broth from scratch. And then naturally, instead, I don't love sweet potatoes, so I will make broccoli rape. I will make escarole with the Italian naturally raisins, or replace them with cranberries and nuts. So we incorporate different things, but the thing is, you can take some of the things from your tradition and incorporate them into what is a local custom, so that even people who do not like turkey can actually appreciate it.
Wonderful. So we're coming at the end of our conversation. I was wondering, is there anything else that we should be talking that we haven't talked about?
What are you going to be doing for this for this Thanksgiving? I'd love to know.
I'm turkey impaired because I actually do have a humongous turkey sitting in my freezer right now, and which I will probably donate to a food bank. But this is my experience about turkey. When I was working in a high-tech company, we were given a turkey from the company, and you could donate it. And typically, I would donate it. But I was in Norway for a business trip, and I have forgotten to communicate to HR that I wouldn't be taking my turkey. So I come back to Pittsburgh, and I hear on the speakerphone, Miss Altieri, your turkey is in the warehouse. So I went, and I never bought a turkey. So I'm like accustomed to the size of a chicken. And here there is this huge.
Huge.
So I say, okay, now I'm stuck with it because I think it was the Wednesday before or something. It was very close to the holiday. And then I invite my best friend and say, I will be making turkey. So obviously I had no clue. So I made it Tuscan style. So it was actually nice and moist, but it had different aromas and spices that were not neither traditional, not what they were expecting. So it was good to my own palate. I think it was also good for them. But again, when your tradition and you're since childhood, you're accustomed and you are expecting certain flavors, let's say that now I like to be entertained, you know, so I like to go, or this particular Thanksgiving, I think we're just going to hide because like yourself, so be on the road for quite some time. We need to kind of put our heads together. We have our, you know, Christmas market that we're setting up, the Christmas party. So I wouldn't, I wouldn't hate to actually spend it just with my husband and kind of in a quiet way and give thanks for having the, indeed, all the people that we have around on a regular basis. So, and maybe I'll make that big turkey, just Tuscan style again for my husband and me.
No, it's true. And I'll tell you, obviously the traditions get even more important when I had my children. Because now, you know, I had all the different holidays and you wanted to bring those things about, which is the traditions are also memories. It's a feeling of home. That connects you. In fact, that's another thing that's very important, is getting people aware of our traditions, why they exist, and then having people go to try them firsthand in Italy. Have a cooking class in Italy. Go see the markets and the type of food that you have there, because I see that a lot of people, when they've gone to Italy, did a cooking class or had a beautiful experience at a vineyard, a small vineyard, with them explaining and showing you how they made that wine, bringing it back to America and looking for it, is because it reminds you and connects you to that moment. So that's another thing that we're trying to do, is more experiences where people can feel different things. Like we were doing a pericena last week, the concept of a pericena, which is actually a newer concept because it came out in the late 90s. And it's something that came around because as a response to the faster paced lifestyle, the urbanization, and young people, you know, wanting to get things faster, less expensive. So there's always different ways to try to educate your audience. And I think looking for those new ways, and especially with young children, is a good place to start. I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
So when I go back to Italy now, it's kind of on me and my sister to carry on the traditions. And I have 4 nephews, and they're all involved. They started, I have pictures when their hands were like tiny, the same way that I was watching my grandmother on a stepping stool to see what she was preparing, and the conviviality of being together. And also, you know, as we were talking about the experiences here in Pittsburgh, we you know, we do have cooking classes every Sunday, and they're very laid back, very hands-on. We did a Regions of Italy cooking club so that we could focus on the regionality of the foods, in order to create a bridge between either people that had gone to those regions, and obviously it might be very challenging to find certain specialties back into their state here in the US, or the ones going to Italy so that they don't feel intimidated ordering a dish that they never heard of. We have so many varieties of dishes, even pasta names that might be a little daunting, and the fact that they have made them. And so definitely Sagre is also that we are big advocates to see local foods at their best when they're in season. And the markets, really, even if they might not have refrigerators in their hotel rooms that, you know, to carry produce. But a lot of food tours that they go around markets and talk to the vendors. That's also another way of getting some of
There's a lot of agriturismi. There's a lot of places where you can go and actually, you know, farming techniques and so forth that you can go and try. And it's depending on what season you're going in, and that have the different possibilities of learning the land and seeing the animals and seeing where cheese comes from, and then tasting a glass of wine that accompanies it. You know, everything is about an experience.
Yes.
And if we can do it here, the other thing we believe in is very important also at our chapter is the multicultural approach, because obviously having people, New York is the melting pot, kind of like, you know, like you have where you are. And there is nothing like passionate people from other cultures that love and want to see what we do. And they are some of the best word of mouth practitioners, because when they fall in love with what we do, it's like a constant domino effect, because they're really our voices. And I think that when we reach other audiences, not just ours, it's a wonderful thing, because then you see how this concept of Italian culture and in wine and food and the Mediterranean diet will continue its journey and take on even.
Yes, they become our ambassadors, so to speak, in the world. Well, unfortunately, our time together is up. Il Big Ben ha detto stop, and it's time for us to say arrivederci e alla prossima. We want to thank you for tuning into the program. If you have any questions or comments, or if you have any topics you would like us to address, please contact us at theitalianradiohour@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. And remember, if you or any of your family and friends have missed a prior episode or would like to listen to this episode again, subscribe to the Italian Radio Hour on YouTube or where you catch your favorite podcast. I would like to thank my guest, Roberta Marini del Plano. Happy birthday, happy Thanksgiving.
Grazie, Viviana. And I want to say thank you for the lovely work that you're doing and the time that you've invested. And it's really, really a pleasure to have been on your show. Thank you so much. And
I feel honored that your words have made my day, my year, my decade.
I would love to come and see and firsthand when I come by that day, which I do.
Make it happen. Definitely. So a big thank you also to our sponsors, Istituto Mondo Italiano and La Prima Espresso. Until next time, alla prossima. Ciao, ciao.
Ciao a tutti. Ciao Viviana.